Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another midweek word of encouragement here at Bear Creek Community Church. I'm so glad that you joined us today. I'm going to be sharing with you in just a second here a song that was written by Mark Altrogi. And Mark, when he was a teenager, he says that he dreamed of being a rock star, kind of like me. I wanted to be a rock star when I was a teenager. But he says he loved to write music, and he loved rock music, and that's what he kind of was aiming towards. But in his 20s, he came to know Christ, and God began to change his heart, and he began to write songs that glorify God. Well, he got a hold of a book, and it was called The Knowledge of the Holy by A.W. Tozer. If you've never read that book, it's a fantastic read. But he says after reading it, he was just reflecting on the holiness of God, and he wrote this song. You are beautiful beyond description, too marvelous for words, too wonderful for comprehension, like nothing ever seen or heard. Who can grasp your infinite wisdom? Who can fathom the depths of your love? You are beautiful beyond description. Majesty enthroned above, and I stand in awe of you. I stand in awe of you. Holy God, to whom all praise is due. I stand in awe of you. Holy God, to whom all praise is due. I stand in awe of you. Amen. What a beautiful song that is, just reflecting on the majesty and the beauty of our great God. I wanted to take a little bit of time today to sort of walk through where we are in this sermon series that we're going through right now called Anchored. In week one, we looked at this book is written by the Apostle Peter, and we are in 1 Peter. We were in chapter 1 that first week, and we talked about faith, and we talked about what it is to believe and to trust in the Lord. And here's one of the things that we found, that to be anchored in the Lord, we must understand that we are protected by God. We're guarded through faith. In fact, Peter says, by God's power, we are guarded through faith. And then thirdly, that we will go through tests, we will go through trials, and they will test the genuineness of our faith. And so when we understand those things, we come to understand what it is to truly, truly, truly live by faith and trust the Lord every day. Well, this past week, we looked at chapter 2 of 1 Peter and what it means to really come into this relationship with God and all that He's doing. And see, it's one thing to have faith in the Lord and to trust Him and to believe in Him. I mean, that's great, and we need to trust Him, but it's not just about belief. It's not just about believing. It's about belonging. It's belonging to Him and belonging to the amazing work that He is doing on this earth right now. And so here's what Peter says in chapter 2, starting in verse 9. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people of his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. See, you belong to God. You are a part of this community of believers. And so that's point number one in belonging, is the fact that you are a part of God's people, Look what he says here in 1 Peter verse 10. It says, once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. And so as believers, we understand that it's not just about believing, but it's about belonging to this community of faith, to belong to God's people. This is the family of God. And then the next thing that he says is he tells us that we have a calling. So it's not just about God's people, but it's about God's calling. And to belong means we belong to this calling. Look what he says in verse 9. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood. And here's what we talked about on Sunday about priesthood. Priesthood means that you are a representation of God, that you represent God on earth, And so every believer is a priest, so to speak, of God, is a representation of God on earth. Now, the Old Testament priesthood went away when Christ came. Christ fulfilled the Old Testament line of priests. But now there's this new priesthood, the priesthood of every single believer. It is your calling, and God has gifted you to be a part of this priesthood, to represent him well on earth. And then finally, it's not just about being a part of God's people and being a part of God's calling, but it's about being a part of God's mission here on earth. Look what he says. He says, you're a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people of his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you. See, proclaiming the excellencies of God means living for his glory, living for his mission. He has a plan on this earth, and you're a part of it. You belong to it. You belong to the people. You belong to the calling. You belong to this mission. God's doing something great, something far greater and far bigger than ourselves. And we're a part of it. It's a joy to be a part of it. And so these past 2 weeks, just keep in mind what we're learning here about being anchored in this faith is that we believe and we trust him, but we also belong. We belong to God's people and his calling and his mission on earth. I pray that blessed you today. Join us next week. God bless you.